Okay. Now, try to be careful not to lose all of the bolts under the lathe. Only lost 2 of them so far. Now, the long bolts go on the bottom. That's a short bolt there. It goes on the top. The longer shank, unthreaded shank, goes on the top. Anyway, those can go right in your bag here. Remove that again. Now you can see some of these things here. This is what I was talking about here. This goes right on here, like that. Right there. And it shifts this by moving it back and forth, like that, and places it on each. Alright, we're back here now. I have lined up the knobs and the gears inside. Now the key is you want to set this gear so that key is pointing upward, basically to the 8 here, and then that means that the rack of this gear will be all the way back to that side, and that this will be rotated. You can move it back and forth and then rotate it. If you move it all the way forward like this, you can rotate it and then set it in the right position. Take your handle like this and make sure that it's going to line up so that the key here lines up with the key there, and then the arrow points in the direction that when you turn it, it will go 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 this way, and that will make sure that everything turns out right, which means that the rack back in there will be all the way that way. With this one here, this is the lock for this rack, and it just has a little peg, and that peg should be on this side, on the inside, and there's a slot that it fits into going up and down like this, and that should, and the big slide that slot is in and fits into should be slid all the way back like that in the basically locked position. So this would be in the locked position here, and in that case that key is also upward. Now this one here has a brass notch that's the shifter for a gear that fits onto, which I mentioned before, and you may have to look as you put the case back on. You look through the side of the flashlight, just make sure it lines up. If it lines up close enough, this will slip on, and you got to make sure it's lined up there, or you won't be getting any. You'll be missing gears, and you won't be getting a shift. And so if it's not connected there, but that's easy enough to do. It's easy enough to see on this. This one's probably the most straightforward, and it fits on that sliding gear, the bigger part of the sliding gear. I usually start with it in its middle position, which is I believe that's the D position is where it is. So, and again, you can check your knobs if you want by putting the thing back on temporarily. I just screwed one of those in there and did the same with this one here, so that you know that your knobs are going to come out right when you put those on there. Then I slid that up there. I put that under there to wedge it up again, and then I inserted all of my screws. Remember, there's nothing in that one except the one that's already back there. And then I inserted my screws and all of the things, the long ones on the bottom with the shank. The unthreaded shank goes down here, okay, and then you put that. When you have this wedged up like this, it's easy enough to start these. You do have to push with a little force till you feel it start, and then you can start screwing. Make sure you're not cross-threading. It's easy to do on these. And then basically just snug it up. As you snug it up, you have to make sure that these are coming through. Mine was a little tight on this one, and so as I did that, this one was being pushed clear back. and so I just pried it back with a screwdriver. You could put the screw back in there and pull it back, however you want to do that, or put screwdrivers behind it. But anyway, make sure that this comes through and then it's not being rammed too far back into the back. It can only go back a certain ways. It won't slip off of the pinion or the rack as it goes back. The pinion of this will not slip off of the rack going back, so you don't have to worry about losing your position as you push it on. Just make sure it's in position before you push it on. Then all we need to do now, after I've tightened these, I tightened them in order all the way around so that it snugs up evenly. Made sure they're good and snug so that we hopefully don't have any leaks here. And then we're going to put the handles and the faceplate back on. Actually, we'll put the faceplate on first. And so I'm going to do that here. Just like this. Okay, now we'll get the small nuts out of there, or rather screws out of here. These screws are very tiny. Right there. Alright, and I'm going to put each one of those in the corners, and I'll turn this off for now. Alright, now we've got that back on. The faceplate's ready to go. Now we're going to put the knobs back on. I'm going to start with this knob first, the CDOF knob, and then the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the lock knob. And we'll then do that. And basically, the key there is to put the key in, slide it on so you can get that. That's sometimes a little difficult, especially since these, I don't know if you can see that here, but those actually move in and out just a little bit. So I'll put the key in, I'll put a screwdriver behind that key to hold it a little bit while I press that on as far as I can, and then I'll use the screw to completely press that on there. I did have to, you'll notice that this one is shinier than these. It's because I ground this one off so that it wouldn't drag on here. You may have to leave these just a little bit loose in order to keep this from dragging, the knob from dragging on this right here. I could grind this one off as well, but I don't think I'm going to worry about that. It's not that big a deal if they're slightly loose, and they don't feel that loose anyway. So we're going to put those on, like I said, key in, screwdriver or something thin back there to pry against the key, and then slide that on there. As soon as you get on far enough that you can engage the screw, then you just put that there. Once you get that knob on there, it will hold that in its position. Now it's just a little bit loose there. So anyway, we'll get that done, and we'll come back here. Then you need to place the screw and also the sorry, not the screw. First you start with the bearing, then the spring, then the set nut, and then you screw that in with that 4 millimeter wrench that goes in there, and you tighten that to however you want your detent, however tight you want your detent to be, and there you go. Okay, the next thing to do will be to set the screws in and the arrow here. Now remember, I placed this in the locked position. That's so this doesn't move around either when we put the face back on. So now we're going to attach those. It helps to put your screw on here. Hold it like that, and then place that in there. Tiny bit of pressure so you can get it started. And begin screwing that on. And these can be a little bugger to get them started. Once you get one, you're a little bit home free. It's a pain to drop these. If you do drop them, it's a good idea to have a flashlight that you can look around on the floor with. That saved my life a couple times. I don't know where I'd find screws this size, except maybe order them from Enco or China. And we tighten that down, and there you go.